I'm Dina Zoe Belluigi, a member of the think tank Migrant and Minority Ethnic Council and an academic of Queen's University Belfast. I'll be highlighting aspects of a report which presents a mapping of research engagement about matters related to migrant and minority ethnic people, groups or subjects in Northern Ireland, recorded on the public repositories of Northern Irish universities. The project was undertaken by the Migrant Minority Ethnic Council of Northern Ireland, led by myself and supported by Amanda Lovett, in the period of January to April 2021. The project was partially supported through the ESRC Impact Acceleration account in partnership with Queen's University Belfast. Information about the research engagement items were collated, categorized using tags, and archived to an open source online reference management system, which is hosted on the research page of the MME website for members of the public to access and utilize. I'll be presenting on the report drawn from the data of that archive, which includes the type of item, the subject areas, their subcode, and related listed items, breakdowns of the identifications or social groupings, academic disciplines and concepts covered, and the full bibliography. From that information, figures and graphs have been constructed, which I'll be sharing with you in this recording. Before I begin, it's important I indicate some of the limitations. The research process did not involve in-depth reading of the texts, nor searching the institutional library databases or other repositories. Sources were collated from the databases that the two universities utilized to store and collate research items and to share information open access with the public. Both utilize the Pure software. This is where academic outputs have been recorded in recent times to fulfill the obligations of public research institutions in the UK, which means there may be older research and some engagements that have not been made available via these platforms. The report also does not include research undertaken outside of public universities. Please read more about such limitations in the report. This report should be seen as offering a snapshot of the research engagement undertaken by researchers within Queen's University Belfast and Ulster University, which relate to the broad umbrella term migrant and minority ethnic matters, specifically those studies that were conducted about or with those people or communities in Northern Ireland. So what does the report do? It presents information about 176 research items on the repositories, inclusive of conventional means of academic output, including peer-reviewed papers, books, and chapters, in addition to reports, dissertations, blogs, and other research engagement activities. The report breaks these down per institution, indicating from the information available on the repositories that while there has been research undertaken, this is not a mainstream area of research inquiry in either institution. For the most part, the report does not aim to analyze, but rather organize the items. It does so using what we've called subject areas, which were determined by the MME Council to be of particular concern to migrant and minority ethnic groups in Northern Ireland. These include criminal justice, education, employment, environment, health, housing, discrimination, and legislation. So sources may appear in more than one category because they address more than one of the topics. Figure 1 visualizes the sources that fall in each category. The largest category is discrimination, a cross-cutting category that relates to all forms of discrimination. Of the remaining 6 categories, criminal justice and education seem to be the most commonly researched, while environment and housing seem less researched than the other topics. Of the 176 sources placed in the online database, 72 were published in the last 5 years. This is important for noting which findings are current and responsive to changing conditions. Figure 2 visualizes all 8 categories, comparing the number of sources over the past 5 years, which you can see in the lighter color, with the number of sources over all time, the whole bar. You can see that discrimination, criminal justice, health, and then education are the most alluded to in the last 5 years. The least references are to housing, employment, and environment. To shortcut this presentation, have a look at this infographic of the finer coding of the research undertaken in the last 5 years. You will not find this visual in the report. Rather, there you will find far more detail per category. The top line of the graph in white shows all the 176 research items per category in descending order, or from the most referred category to the least. The second horizontal line in grey shows what was done in the last 5 years, with the numbers of items indicated. You can see that health has had an increase in interest during this time, for instance. The finer coding that appears below each category of the grey line was inferred by induction from scans of the item and from deduction from the areas of concern and groups identified by the project partners. If one looks closely, you can see that 27 items of the 72 recorded over the last 5 years have tags that fall under the category of discrimination. These sources can be broken down into 9 subcategories, including educational discrimination, health discrimination, intolerance, racism, and others. All these types of discrimination were counted independently, meaning that if a source addresses multiple types of discrimination, which is common, it can be counted several times. This approach to quantification allows for a better understanding of what types of discrimination get mentioned and how frequently. 17 of the 72 sources over the past 5 years have tags that fall under the category of criminal justice. The majority of research over the past 5 years focuses upon hate crime. That's 9 of the 17 sources. Less frequently referenced were the topics of policing, only 3 of 17, forced labor, 2 of 17. Finally, domestic abuse, prostitution, and human trafficking were the focus of 1 source. 14 of 72 sources over the past 5 years have tags that fall under the category of education. The majority of research over the past 5 years focuses on language, looking at language diversity, language learning, and the teaching of language as a second language. The remaining sources look at educational inequalities, students' attitudes towards minorities and migrants, and traveler education, of which there is only 1 of the 14. 6 of 72 sources over the past 5 years have tags that fall under the category of employment. This category is significantly underrepresented in recent research compared with the 29 sources identified on employment when considering all years. 17 of the sources over the past 5 years have tags that fall under the category of health. The majority of research on health over the past 5 years focuses on mental health and well-being, or general health inequalities and inequities. Less research focuses specifically on women's health, only 3 of 17, with 1 article on pregnancy and 2 on female genital cutting or mutilation. Finally, both substance abuse and suicide appear as the focus of only 1 source, indicating that further research is needed in these areas. 10 items recorded over the last 5 years have tags that fall under the category of legislation. These resources can be broken into 5 subcategories: Brexit, hate crime, modern slavery, race relations, and social services. 9 items over the past 5 years have tags that fall under the category of housing. The majority of research on housing focuses on asylum seekers and refugees. 6 of the 72 sources over the past 5 years have tags that fall under the category environment. These sources were not further broken down into subcategories because all address similar topics of placemaking and shared spaces. Please do look at the report for your own purposes because you'll see that each subject includes the links to the resources and some of the finer coding to which they relate in ways that may be useful for your interest or use. The report includes tables with more information, such as the demographics, concepts, and research disciplines. Overall, issues relating specifically to the listed demographic categories were underrepresented and under-researched. The most common demographic to appear in sources was gender, appearing in 10% of the sources, most often relating to women. Sexuality and LGBTQ populations appeared less frequently in 4% of sources. Age was less frequently addressed, with just 1 mention. Language was a commonly mentioned topic, appearing in 28 sources. When it comes to that which relate to migrants, most terms are broad generalizations. The terms refugees and asylum seekers appeared frequently in 14% of the sources. Less common were the terms relating to first-generation migrants, only 3, second-generation migrants, only 2, and undocumented workers, only 2. Many different identities were mentioned and are listed in the category race, ethnicity, and nationality. However, few publications focus specifically on one population. Religion did not commonly appear and was not the focus of any of the sources. Most of the tags for religion occurred in articles on hate crime and discrimination. We also provide a table of tags grouped according to certain categories, including the context, such as football or hospitality or Brexit, various facets of discrimination, from anti-Semitism through to violence, gender violence, integration, policing, poverty, and support. Of interest from an academic perspective are the disciplinary areas with a track record in this area, and by their absence, those which don't. Included in the appendices is this alphabetized list of tags and a complete list of references. The appendices also includes a list of all the student dissertations matching our criteria, and it is concerning that there were only 11 of these. However, one should keep in mind that individual institutions vary in their compliance to providing open access postgraduate research reports. One would hope for the sustainability of this knowledge base that this becomes a growing or active concern within teaching and research in the institution. We conclude the report with transparency about the research team and our thanks to the partners and contributors. For that particularly, I would like to thank Amanda Lovett, who undertook this process early in 2021, a very difficult time during COVID and during her own postgraduate studies here as a migrant scholar. With thanks also to Lynn Gort of the Research and Enterprise Directorate of Queen's University for her assistance, the committee of the ESRC Impact Acceleration Account, and Dr. Michael O'Connor of Queen's Library for information about postgraduate research open access requirement at UK universities, Dr. Ibra Brachat of Queen's University, and the council members of the MME Council for their support, challenge, and guidance. This report forms part of a larger program of activities following its launch. Please subscribe to our website at mmecouncil.org for updates as they happen, and to email feedback, comments, questions, or suggestions, and for details on how to follow us on social media.